The Galactic Council's assessment drones have been circling Earth for 3 standard cycles, their sensors working overtime to catalog every detail of the third planet from Sol. The readings they transmitted back to the Council chambers on Nexus Prime painted a picture that made even the most hardened xenobiologists shudder. Gravity, 1.2 standard units. Atmospheric pressure, crushing. Seismic activity, constant. Weather patterns, chaotic and violent. The planet's surface was a nightmare of extremes, from frozen wastelands that could snap bones to deserts hot enough to melt most known metals. The oceans covered 70% of the surface, filled with salt concentrations that would poison any civilized species. Ambassador Kethvar of the Zilani Consortium stood before the assembled council, his 4 arms gesticulating wildly as he presented the final report. His species had evolved on a gentle world with 0.8 standard gravity, where the strongest weather event was a light breeze, and the most dangerous predator was roughly equivalent to what humans might call a butterfly. Honorable council members, Kethvar's translator converted his melodic tones into standard galactic. I present to you the most hostile world we have ever encountered that somehow supports complex life. The planet designated Terra, or Earth as its inhabitants call it, defies every standard of habitability we have established. The holographic display behind him showed swirling hurricane systems that could span entire continents, volcanic eruptions that spewed molten rock kilometers into the sky, and tectonic plates grinding against each other with enough force to level cities. The assembled delegates from 47 species watched in horrified fascination. The gravity alone would crush most of our citizens, continued Kethvar, his secondary arms typing notes while his primary hands emphasized his points. But that is merely the beginning. The atmospheric composition includes 21% oxygen, a gas so reactive it would corrode our finest hull materials. The electromagnetic radiation from their star penetrates the atmosphere in dangerous quantities, requiring any visitor to shield themselves constantly. A delegate from the crystalline Vorthak Empire raised a glowing appendage. Surely no intelligent life could have evolved in such conditions? Kethvar's expression shifted to what his species used to convey profound confusion. That is where this situation becomes truly inexplicable, honored Vorthak. Not only has intelligent life evolved on this death world, but they have thrived. The species calls itself humanity, and their adaptations to their hostile environment have made them into something that challenges our understanding of biology itself. The hologram shifted to show images captured by long-range sensors. Humans working in conditions that would kill most galactic citizens within moments. Construction crews building massive structures while hanging from cables hundreds of meters above the ground, seemingly unconcerned by the fatal drop below. Athletes pushing their bodies to limits that would rupture the circulatory systems of most species. Soldiers carrying equipment that weighed more than entire Zilani families while marching across terrain that registered as impassable on their survey equipment. Their bone density is 3 times galactic standard, Kethvar explained, pulling up biological scans. Their muscle fibers are woven in patterns we have never seen, capable of generating force that borders on mechanical enhancement. Their cardiovascular system operates under pressures that would explode the hearts of most council species. A nervous chittering arose from the insectoid hive queen representative. Surely they must be a warrior species, evolved for combat? No, Kethvar replied, his voice carrying an odd note of what almost sounded like admiration. They are remarkably peaceful for a species with such physical capabilities. They have wars, yes, but they also create art, music, literature. They explore their death world not for conquest but for curiosity. They climb their mountains because, as one of their explorers was recorded saying, the mountain is there. The council chamber fell silent as the implications settled in. Here was a species that treated a Class 5 death world as home, and they had not been hardened into mere survival machines. They were curious, creative, and according to the cultural analysis, possessed of a trait that the xenopsychologists were calling dangerous optimism. "What do you recommend?" asked the Council Prime, an ancient being whose species had achieved spaceflight when the galaxy was young. Standard protocol would be to classify their world as a quarantine zone and establish monitoring stations at safe distance, Kethvar replied. However, I fear we may have a problem. Our long-range communications detected something 3 days ago that changes everything. The hologram shifted again, showing the massive orbital platform that hung in space above Earth like a mechanical moon. It was clearly artificial, a construction of metal and crystal that stretched for dozens of kilometers in every direction. Smaller structures dotted the space around it, and the readings showed thousands of life signs aboard each one. "They have achieved spaceflight," Kethvar announced. "And they have done something that we frankly thought was impossible. They have built permanent habitation structures in the void of space. Not space stations in the traditional sense, not enclosed bubbles of artificial environment. They have built cities in space, cities where they live and work and raise families in what they call microgravity." The chittering from the hive queen grew more agitated. "Impossible. No species builds cities in space. You build stations for research, mining platforms for resources. But not cities. Not places where civilians live. Yet here we are." Kethvar gestured to the display. "Our sensors show residential districts, entertainment complexes, agricultural sections that span kilometers. They have artificial weather systems, recreational areas that simulate environments from their death world, and manufacturing facilities that produce goods for both their planet and their orbital communities." The Vorthag delegate's crystalline structure pulsed with confused colors. "How do they maintain structural integrity?" "The engineering requirements alone. That is what makes this particularly concerning." Kethvar brought up engineering diagrams that had been pieced together from sensor data. "They are using construction techniques that our finest engineers insist are impossible. They spin sections of their cities to create artificial gravity, but they do it while maintaining perfect structural balance across multiple rotating sections. They have transportation systems that move between these sections during rotation, using what appears to be controlled free-fall trajectories. They are playing games with physics that could kill thousands if they make a mistake," whispered a delegate from the gas giant dwelling floaters. "But they are not making mistakes," Kethvar emphasized. "Our sensors have been monitoring these structures for the entire observation period. Not one structural failure, not one accident. They built these impossibilities, and they built them to last. More concerning still, they appear to be building more." The display showed construction sites scattered throughout the Earth orbital space, massive frameworks growing larger by the day, new cities taking shape in the vacuum that would crush or freeze any normal species in seconds. "How many of them are there?" asked the Council Prime. "Planetary population appears to be approaching 8 billion. Orbital population." Kethvar hesitated. "We estimate at least 50 million, with numbers growing rapidly. They are not just visiting space, they are colonizing it." A long silence stretched through the chamber as the Council absorbed this information. 50 million beings living permanently in space was a number that dwarfed the entire population of some member worlds. Most species had a few thousand individuals working in space at any given time. The idea of millions of civilians choosing to live in such conditions was almost incomprehensible. "There is something else," Kethvar continued reluctantly. "Their technology. We have analyzed their construction methods, their power systems, their transportation networks. In some areas, they lag behind galactic standard by centuries. In others, prompted the Council Prime. In others, they are doing things we cannot do. Their materials science is producing alloys that should not be possible with their level of technology. Their energy distribution systems are more efficient than anything in our databases, and their computer systems..." Kethvar paused, looking at his notes as if hoping they would change. "Their computer systems are approaching processing power levels that we associate with species that have been spacefaring for thousands of years." The implications hung heavy in the recycled air of the council chamber. Earth was not just a death world that had produced an inexplicably hardy species. It was a death world that had produced a species capable of engineering feats that challenged the understanding of civilizations that had been exploring the galaxy since before humans had discovered fire. "Recommendations?" the Council Prime asked again. "I believe we need to revise our classification system," Kethvar said slowly. "Earth is indeed a death world by our standards. But for its native species, it appears to be something else entirely. It is a training ground that has produced beings adapted not just for survival, but for thriving in the most impossible conditions. And now they are taking those adaptations and using them to build the impossible. You are suggesting they might be dangerous to galactic peace? The question came from a species that resembled metallic trees, their voice carrying harmonic undertones. I am suggesting they might be dangerous to our understanding of what is possible, Kethvar replied. They look at conditions that would kill us and see opportunities. They look at engineering challenges that our computers calculate as impossible and somehow find solutions. They live on a world that tries to kill them every day, and their response has been to build paradise cities floating in the void of space. The Council Prime's ancient eyes studied the display showing Earth's orbital cities. Millions of lights twinkled in structures that defied conventional wisdom, each light representing beings who had chosen to live in conditions that most of the galaxy considered uninhabitable. Begin preparation for first contact protocols, the Council Prime decided. If this species has mastered construction techniques unknown to us, we need to understand how. If they can make space colonization practical on this scale, every world in the galaxy will want to know their methods. Honored Prime, Kethvar interjected carefully. Perhaps we should consider that there may be good reasons why no other species has attempted large-scale space colonization. The risks, the engineering challenges, the sheer audacity required. Yes, the Council Prime replied, still staring at the impossible cities floating in Earth's sky. Audacity? That may be exactly what the galaxy needs. As the council session adjourned and delegates returned to their respective ships and worlds, none of them could shake the images of those orbital cities. Millions of beings from a death world, living comfortably in conditions that would kill most galactic citizens, building structures that challenged the laws of engineering, and doing it all with what their reports described as cheerful determination. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was not their adaptation to a hostile world, but their refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. They had looked at the vacuum of space and seen it not as a barrier to overcome, but as real estate to develop. And they were just getting started. The first contact ship, Harmonious Understanding, approached Earth's orbital space with the caution typically reserved for navigating asteroid fields or unstable wormholes. Captain Zixandra of the Nexus fleet had overseen 17 successful first contacts in her career, but none had prepared her for the sight that filled her main viewing screen. Where she had expected to find perhaps a single space station or a small cluster of research platforms, Earth's orbital zone bustled with activity that defied classification. The cities were even larger than the initial reports had suggested and more numerous. Her sensors counted 47 major orbital installations, with dozens of smaller platforms and what appeared to be transportation networks linking them all together. "Captain," her sensor operator called out, his voice tight with confusion, "I am reading structures that are rotating, multiple rotating sections per installation, all at different speeds, and somehow they are not tearing themselves apart." Zixandra studied the readings herself. Each of the major installations consisted of several massive wheels spinning at precisely calculated speeds. Engineering theory insisted that such structures would destroy themselves within days due to stress fractures and harmonic resonance. Yet the sensors showed construction dates indicating some of these impossible machines had been operating for decades. "Open communication channels," she ordered, "a standard first contact protocols." The response came back almost immediately, in flawless galactic standard. "Orbital traffic control to unidentified vessel, welcome to Earth space. Please state your origin, destination, and purpose of visit. Are you here for the engineering conference, cultural exchange program, or just sightseeing?" Zixandra exchanged glances with her communications officer. First contact protocols did not typically include questions about tourism options. "This is Captain Zixandra of the Galactic Council ship Harmonious Understanding. We are here to initiate formal first contact between Earth and the galactic community." A brief pause, then a different voice came through the communicators. "Captain, this is Director Sarah Chen of Orbital Operations. We have been monitoring your approach for the past 6 hours. Council ship, you said? That is exciting news. Would you prefer to dock at New Geneva Station, or would you rather take a tour of the orbital ring first? Bear warning, The gravity transitions can be rough if your species is not adapted for variable acceleration. The casual friendliness in the human voice threw Zixandra off balance. Most species approached first contact with deep suspicion, lengthy security protocols, and formal ceremonies that could stretch for days. These humans seemed to be treating the arrival of representatives from a galactic civilization as roughly equivalent to tourists dropping by for a visit. "We would appreciate docking facilities," Zixandra replied, trying to maintain diplomatic dignity while her crew stared in fascination at the orbital installations growing larger on their screens. "Absolutely. Transmitting approach vectors now. You will be coming in on the night side of New Geneva, so you will get a beautiful view of the city lights during your approach. Fair warning again, we spin at about 1 gravity Earth normal, which our computers tell us is roughly 1.2 galactic standard. Will your crew be comfortable with that?" Zixandra felt her stomach drop. 1.2 standard gravity was at the upper edge of what most council species could tolerate, and these humans were using it as their normal living environment in space. "Our crew can manage for brief periods," she replied, making a note to limit the duration of their visit. "Excellent. Docking Bay 7 is prepped for you. Medical station is standing by if anyone needs assistance with the gravity adjustment. And we have mobility assistance suits available if needed. Looking forward to meeting you." As the harmonious understanding approached the designated docking bay, Zixandra got her first close look at human space architecture. The engineering was even more impressive up close. The rotating sections were enormous, easily large enough to house entire cities, and they were connected to stationary sections by what appeared to be mechanical joints that somehow maintained perfect seals while allowing independent rotation. "Captain," her engineering officer reported, "I am detecting power distribution networks that should not be possible. They are transferring energy between rotating and stationary sections using inductive coupling systems that our best engineers would consider theoretical at best." Through the transparent barriers of the docking bay, Zixandra could see humans moving about in what appeared to be normal gravity. They walked naturally, carried objects without strain, and showed no signs of the careful movement patterns that most species adopted in artificial gravity fields. These beings had made high-gravity space habitation look effortless. The docking process itself was flawlessly executed by automated systems that adapted to the harmonious understanding's configuration without requiring detailed specifications. As soon as the seals locked into place, a welcoming party appeared in the bay. 2 humans, both wearing what appeared to be normal civilian clothing rather than environmental suits or military uniforms. Director Chen was a compact human with graying hair and an easy smile that seemed genuine rather than diplomatic. Her companion was introduced as Engineer Martinez, a tall human whose casual manner suggested he was more interested in technical discussions than formal protocols. "Welcome to New Geneva Station," Director Chen said as they met in the airlock. The gravity hit Zixandra immediately, making her movements feel sluggish and requiring conscious effort to maintain normal posture. Both humans noticed her discomfort, but politely made no comment beyond Chen's quiet, "Take your time adjusting. We have chairs in the conference room." As they walked through the station, Zixandra found herself staring in amazement. This was not a sterile space station built for efficiency and survival. This was a city that happened to be floating in space. The corridors were wide and comfortable, with actual windows showing views of Earth below or the star field beyond. Children played in what appeared to be a park, complete with grass and trees. Elderly humans sat on benches reading physical books, while watching spacecraft come and go through the transparent dome overhead. "How many people live here?" Zixandra asked, struggling to process what she was seeing. "On this station? About 800,000, Martinez replied casually, though the population fluctuates depending on work schedules and family visits. Some people split their time between Earth's surface and orbital, others are full-time space residents. 800,000 beings living permanently in space on a single installation. The number was staggering. Most council species had fewer individuals working in space across their entire civilization. The conference room offered a spectacular view of Earth's surface through a transparent wall that stretched from floor to ceiling. The planet below showed the swirling cloud patterns and violent weather systems that had earned it the Death World classification. But from this perspective, it looked almost peaceful. We understand you have classified our world as hostile to most galactic life. Director Chen began, settling into her chair with the easy grace of someone completely comfortable in high gravity. That is probably accurate. Most of our visitors from other worlds have had difficulty with our environmental conditions. Other visitors? Zixandra struggled to maintain composure while her body fought against the crushing weight of human normal gravity. You have had previous contact with extraterrestrial species? Oh, yes. Engineer Martinez pulled up a holographic display that showed what appeared to be a diplomatic log. Nothing as formal as this, mind you. Mostly individual explorers, a few trading ships, some researchers studying what they called impossible engineering solutions. We have had 17 different species make unofficial contact over the past 40 years. The casual way he mentioned 4 decades of secret contact with multiple alien species left Zixandra momentarily speechless. The Council's intelligence networks had completely missed an entire informal diplomatic and trade relationship that Earth had been conducting with various galactic civilizations. We try not to make a big deal about it, Director Chen explained, noting Zixandra's expression. Most of our visitors seem to be scientists or engineers who heard rumors about our construction techniques and wanted to see for themselves. We are always happy to share information, and some of them have provided fascinating insights into alternative approaches to engineering problems. You share your technology freely? Zixandra managed to ask. Why would we not? Martinez seemed genuinely puzzled by the question. Information wants to be shared. Every technique we have learned came from someone else's work, built on generations of human knowledge and plenty of ideas borrowed from nature. When someone shows up wanting to understand how we build things, we show them. Usually they teach us something new in return. Zixandra thought about the careful technology transfer agreements, the classified research projects, and the complex intellectual property laws that governed most galactic civilizations. The idea of sharing advanced engineering techniques with anyone who asked was almost incomprehensible. I notice you seem uncomfortable with our gravity, Director Chen observed gently. Would you like to take a tour of the variable gravity sections? We have residential areas that range from 0G up to about 1.5 Earth normal. Many of our off-world guests find the transition zones interesting from an engineering perspective. They moved through the station using what the humans called a transit pod, a small vehicle that traveled through tubes connecting different sections of the orbital city. As they moved between areas, Zixandra felt the gravity shift smoothly from the crushing 1.2 standard in the main residential areas down to a more comfortable 0.8 standard in what Martinez explained was the low-gravity industrial district. We manufacture precision components here, he explained as they passed through workshops where humans and machines worked together in the lighter gravity. Turns out there are some processes that work better in reduced gravity, so we put those operations in this section. The personnel here work 4-hour shifts in low-G, then spend time in the standard gravity areas to maintain bone density and muscle tone. The casual way he mentioned managing the health effects of variable gravity exposure suggested a level of spaced medical knowledge that most galactic civilizations spent centuries developing. These humans had apparently figured it out through trial and error while building their impossible cities. The tour continued through residential districts that looked like neighborhoods from any planet-based city, complete with shops, restaurants, and schools. Children attended classes where they learned about orbital mechanics as easily as most species learned basic mathematics. Families lived in apartments with windows looking out at the stars, treating the view of infinity as a normal part of their daily environment. How do you handle emergencies? Zixandra asked as they passed what appeared to be a sports complex where humans were playing games in various gravity environments. Structural failures, system malfunctions, medical emergencies in space? Same way you handle emergencies anywhere else, Director Chen replied. Good preparation, trained personnel, backup systems, and the understanding that everyone looks out for everyone else. Space is not more dangerous than Earth's surface, really. It is just dangerous in different ways. Zixandra thought about the storm systems visible through the windows, the volcanic activity, the seismic instability that made Earth a Class 5 death world. To humans, the vacuum of space was apparently just another environment to be managed, no more threatening than their planet's surface. They ended the tour in what Martinez proudly called the engineering district, where humans worked on projects that made Zixandra's head spin. Massive construction frameworks for new orbital installations, propulsion systems that somehow moved sections of cities between different orbital positions, power generation systems that collected energy from Earth's magnetic field while the stations rotated through it. This is our latest project. Martinez gestured to a holographic display showing construction plans for something that dwarfed even the massive existing installations. We call it New Earth, completely self-sufficient orbital habitat, designed to support about 50 million residents. 50 million people living permanently in space on a single installation. The number represented a larger population than most Council worlds achieved after centuries of development, and the humans were building it as one of several similar projects. The interesting challenge, Martinez continued enthusiastically, is creating a genuine weather system inside a rotating habitat. We want to have actual precipitation, wind patterns, maybe even seasonal variations. The atmospheric dynamics are fascinating when you factor in the Coriolis effects from rotation. Zixandra stared at the plans. These humans were not just building cities in space. They were building worlds in space, complete with weather systems and natural environments that would make their orbital habitats indistinguishable from planetary surfaces except for the view through the windows. As the formal tour concluded and they returned to the main conference room, Director Chen offered an invitation that left Zixandra stunned. "We would be honored to host a Galactic Council embassy here," she said. "We have space available in the diplomatic district which we built specifically for off-world visitors. Variable gravity, customizable atmospheric composition, whatever environmental conditions your people need to be comfortable. A diplomatic district built specifically for alien visitors, on a space station that housed nearly 1 million beings above a death world that should have been uninhabitable. I will need to communicate this offer to the Council," Zixandra replied, her mind reeling with the implications of everything she had seen. "Of course," Director Chen smiled. "Take your time. We are not going anywhere. Well, we are orbiting at about 7 kilometers per second, but you know what I mean? As the harmonious understanding departed Earth orbital space, its databases full of sensor readings and cultural observations that would challenge everything the Galactic Council thought they knew about space habitation, Zixandra found herself looking forward to the reactions of the Council engineers. Humans had not just survived their death world. They had used it as training to build something that most galactic civilizations would consider paradise. And they had done it with cheerful determination and the kind of optimistic engineering that treated impossible challenges as interesting puzzles to be solved. The galaxy was about to discover that death worlds did not produce broken species. They produced species that thought living in space was just another interesting way to build neighborhoods. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called within hours of Captain Zixandra's detailed report reaching Nexus Prime. The massive amphitheater that usually hosted routine diplomatic proceedings now buzzed with an energy that had not been felt in decades. Representatives from every major galactic civilization crowded the chamber, while secondary screens carried the session to remote systems where species had gathered to witness what many were calling the most significant first contact event in galactic history. The cause of this unprecedented gathering was not the discovery of a new species, but rather the discovery that this new species had apparently rendered obsolete every assumption the galaxy held about space habitation, engineering limitations, and the fundamental requirements for civilization to flourish. Council Prime Vex the Haran, whose species had witnessed the rise and fall of 16 galactic civilizations over the past 50,000 years, called for order with the gravity wave harmonics that served as his voice. The ancient being had seen technological revolutions come and go, but the reports from Earth had shaken even his millennia-spanning perspective. Honored delegates, his translated words resonated through the chamber's acoustic systems. We gather today to address information that challenges our understanding of what is possible. The species known as humanity has achieved something that our finest engineers insist should not exist. They have not merely built space stations, they have built space civilizations. The holographic displays around the chamber came alive with images transmitted from the harmonious understanding. The massive rotating cities of Earth orbital space turned slowly in the vacuum, their city lights twinkling like stars while millions of human beings live their daily lives in conditions that would kill most galactic citizens within minutes. Ambassador Kethvar of the Zelani Consortium stood at the central podium, his forearms manipulating data displays that showed the detailed engineering analysis his team had conducted. Council members, I have spent my career evaluating the technological capabilities of emerging species. I have never encountered anything that compares to what we have observed at Earth. The displays shifted to show technical schematics that had been assembled from sensor data and direct observation. Rotating habitats with multiple independent sections, each spinning at different rates while maintaining perfect structural integrity. Gravity gradients that transitioned smoothly from zero-G industrial zones to high-gravity residential areas. Transportation networks that moved people and cargo between sections during rotation using controlled freefall trajectories that required split-second timing and mathematical precision. The humans are not simply overcoming engineering challenges, Kethvar continued. They are solving problems that our computer models insist have no solutions. Their rotating habitats should tear themselves apart from harmonic resonance within weeks. Instead, some of them have been operating continuously for over 40 years. A delegate from the crystalline Vorthak Empire pulsed with colors indicating deep confusion. Surely they must be using some form of exotic matter or gravitational manipulation technology. Advanced materials beyond our current understanding? No, Kethvar replied, his voice carrying a note of something approaching awe. They are using conventional materials and straightforward mechanical engineering. The exotic element is not their technology. It is their approach to engineering problems. They design things that should not work, build them anyway, and somehow make them function perfectly. The chamber filled with the various sounds that different species use to express disbelief. Chittering from the insectoids, harmonic resonance from the crystalline delegates, and electromagnetic fluctuations from the energy-based beings who participated through containment fields. Dr. Thalandra of the Nexus Scientific Collective, one of the galaxy's most respected engineering theorists, requested permission to address the council. Her species, the Korthani, had developed most of the mathematical frameworks that governed modern galactic engineering. Council Prime. I have reviewed the technical data 3 times. I have run every simulation model available to us. The human orbital installations violate at least 17 fundamental principles of mechanical engineering. They should not merely fail, they should catastrophically disintegrate within days of construction completion. Yet they do not fail, Council Prime Vextheron observed. No, they do not fail. More concerning, they appear to be remarkably stable. The humans have been expanding these installations continuously for decades, adding new sections, increasing population density, and introducing new technological systems without compromising structural integrity. They treat these impossible machines as if they were as reliable as planetary surface construction. The implications hung heavy in the recycled atmosphere of the council chamber. Humanity had not just achieved large-scale space habitation through some unknown advanced technology. They had achieved it through apparently conventional means, but with an approach to engineering that produced results beyond what galactic civilization considered possible. Ambassador Felthar of the Aquatic Cooperative raised a tentacle for attention. His species had spent centuries attempting to develop space habitation suitable for their water-breathing physiology, with limited success. Have they shared their construction techniques? Can their methods be replicated by other species? That is perhaps the most remarkable aspect of this situation, Kethvar replied. According to Captain Zixandra's report, they freely share technical information with anyone who asks. They have apparently been doing so for 40 years with individual visitors from various species. They seemed genuinely puzzled by the concept of withholding engineering knowledge. The chamber erupted in discussions as delegates tried to process this information. Most galactic civilizations guarded their advanced technologies carefully, sharing only through formal treaties and extensive negotiations. The idea of freely distributing construction techniques for impossible space habitats was almost as shocking as the existence of the habitats themselves. There is additional information. Kethvar continued, waiting for quiet. Captain Zixandra was invited to tour what the humans call their engineering districts. They showed her construction plans for installations that dwarf their existing cities. They are planning orbital habitats designed to support 50 million residents each, complete with artificial weather systems and terraformed environments. The silence that followed was profound. 50 million beings living in space on a single installation represented a larger space-based population than most species achieved in their entire civilizations. The humans were planning multiple such installations as routine expansion projects. Dr. Thalandra spoke into the quiet. Council members, if human space habitation techniques can be replicated, we are looking at the possibility of unlimited expansion beyond planetary surfaces. Every species in the galaxy could establish orbital populations that dwarf their homeworld populations. The implications for galactic civilization are staggering. If they can be replicated by other species, emphasized the Vorthak delegate, these techniques may depend on human biological adaptations to their high-gravity death world, their enhanced bone density, cardiovascular systems adapted for extreme conditions, muscle fiber configurations that operate under crushing pressures. Captain Zixandra's report addressed this concern, Kethvar replied. The human installations include variable gravity environments, specifically designed for off-world visitors. They have created living spaces suitable for species with different gravitational requirements, atmospheric needs, and environmental preferences. They appear to have anticipated that other species would want to live in their orbital cities. This sparked another wave of discussions throughout the chamber. The humans had not merely solved space habitation for themselves. They had engineered solutions that would work for a wide range of galactic species. They had built their impossible cities with the assumption that the galaxy would want to visit, stay, and become part of their orbital civilization. Council Prime Vextharan called for order with another gravity wave pulse. We must address the immediate question before us. Do we proceed with formal diplomatic relations? Do we accept the human offer to establish a council embassy in their orbital space? The question sparked heated debate. Representatives argued about the security implications of placing council citizens in space habitats that violated known engineering principles. Others pointed to the potential technological benefits of direct access to human construction techniques. Still others worried about the cultural implications of establishing diplomatic relations with a species that treated impossible engineering challenges as routine problems to be solved. The Hive Queen of the Insectoid Collective raised her concerns about human biological capabilities. These beings have evolved on a death world that has made them into something approaching biological machines. They live comfortably in conditions that would kill our citizens. How do we establish meaningful diplomatic relations with a species so physically different from galactic norms? By learning from them, replied Ambassador Korthik of the Mechanical Symbiosis. His species had replaced most of their biological components with technological enhancements over their evolutionary history. If humans can achieve these results through biological adaptation and unconventional engineering, perhaps we can achieve similar results through technological enhancement and new approaches to construction. The debates continued for hours, touching on every aspect of human civilization that had been observed. Their casual attitude toward sharing advanced technology. Their treatment of space habitation as a normal residential choice, their engineering approaches that produced impossible results, their biological adaptations that let them thrive in environments that would kill most galactic species. Finally, Council Prime Vextharan called for a formal vote. The question before us is whether to establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity and accept their offer to place a council embassy in their orbital space. All those in favor? The vote was closer than anyone had expected. 17 species voted in favor, 14 opposed, and 16 abstained. The narrow margin reflected the uncertainty that had gripped the galactic community. Nobody knew quite what to make of a species that built impossible cities in space and then invited the galaxy to come visit. The motion passes, Council Prime Vextharan announced. We will establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity and accept their embassy offer. Ambassador Kethvar, you will lead the diplomatic mission. As the session concluded and delegates began returning to their respective worlds, conversations continued in corridors and meeting chambers throughout the massive council complex. Representatives shared theories about human engineering techniques, debated the implications of large-scale space habitation. In the private chambers reserved for the Council Prime, Vextharan reviewed the complete files on human civilization while contemplating the broader implications. In his 50,000 years of existence, he had seen species achieve remarkable technological breakthroughs, develop new forms of art and culture, and occasionally surprise the galaxy with unexpected innovations. But he had never seen a species that treated the impossible as merely difficult, that approached engineering challenges with cheerful optimism rather than careful calculation, that built paradise cities floating in the vacuum of space and then invited strangers to come live in them. The humans represented something new in galactic civilization, not just another species with different technology or culture, but a species with a fundamentally different relationship to the universe itself. They looked at death worlds and saw training grounds. They looked at impossible engineering challenges and saw interesting puzzles. They looked at the vacuum of space and saw real estate to be developed. As he prepared his personal notes on the day's proceedings, Council Prime Vextharan found himself wondering what other impossible things the humans might achieve once they had full access to galactic knowledge and resources. The thought was both exciting and slightly terrifying. The galaxy was about to learn that some species were not content to merely explore space or survive in space. Some species built homes in space, raised families in space, and created entire civilizations in space, all while treating the achievement as perfectly normal. And they did it all with the kind of cheerful engineering optimism that suggested this was just the beginning of what they considered possible. 5 years after the establishment of formal diplomatic relations, the Galactic Council embassy aboard New Geneva Station had become something that nobody had quite expected. What had started as a modest diplomatic outpost designed to facilitate communication between humanity and the galactic community had evolved into the most successful cross-species collaboration center in known history. Ambassador Kethvar stood in his private office, looking out through the transparent walls at a view that still amazed him after all this time. Earth hung below like a blue-green jewel set against the starfield, while around him the impossible city of New Geneva Station hummed with activity that represented dozens of galactic civilizations working together in ways that had never been achieved before. The embassy itself had grown from its original modest quarters to occupy an entire section of the station. What made it remarkable was not its size, but its inhabitants. Representatives from 43 different galactic species now maintained permanent residences in Earth orbital space. Not because diplomatic protocol required it, but because they had chosen to live there. The humans, with their characteristic approach to impossible problems, had solved the challenge of multi-species habitation by treating it as an interesting engineering puzzle rather than an insurmountable barrier. Different sections of the embassy operated at different gravity levels, atmospheric compositions, temperature ranges, and even lighting spectra to accommodate the biological needs of various species. Transportation between sections was managed by the same controlled freefall systems that the humans used throughout their orbital cities, modified with safety enhancements for species less adapted to variable acceleration. Kethvar's personal quarters operated at Zalani standard gravity and atmosphere, but he had grown comfortable moving through the human standard sections during his daily activities. His forearms had adapted to the higher gravity and his cardiovascular system had adjusted to the denser atmospheric pressure. What surprised him most was that he had begun to prefer the human environmental settings for certain activities. The gravity made movement feel more definitive, more purposeful. Tasks that required precision became easier when equipment had more weight to provide tactile feedback. Even Zalani cultural activities like meditation seemed enhanced by the solid, grounding sensation of higher gravity. A soft chime indicated his morning appointment had arrived. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the human director of Interspecies Engineering Cooperation, entered his office with her usual energetic stride. Over the past 5 years, she had become something that the galactic community had never seen before. A human who specialized in adapting human engineering techniques for use by other species. "Good morning, Ambassador," she said, settling into the specialized chair that accommodated Kethvar's four-armed physiology. "I have updates on 3 of our major collaborative projects." The collaborative projects had begun almost accidentally. As different species studied human engineering techniques, they had started suggesting modifications that might work better for their particular biological or technological capabilities. The humans, with their characteristic openness to sharing information, had encouraged these modifications and offered to help develop them. What had resulted was a technological revolution that was transforming galactic civilization. The Vorthak crystalline matrix project has achieved successful test results, Dr. Vasquez reported, calling up holographic displays that showed the latest construction. They have successfully integrated their natural crystal-growing abilities with our rotating habitat framework designs. The result is a space habitat that literally grows itself, with the Vorthak directing the crystalline structure development to create precisely the internal configurations needed. Kethvar studied the images with fascination. The Vorthak had created a space habitat that looked like a massive crystalline flower, with sections that could be regrown and reconfigured as needed. It combined human engineering principles with Vorthak biological capabilities to create something that neither species could have achieved alone. The weight tolerance is remarkable, Dr. Vasquez continued. Crystal has structural properties that allow for larger habitat sections than our metal constructions. The Vorthak installation is supporting about 3 million residents in a structure that massed 40% less than an equivalent human design. Population response? Kethvar asked. Enthusiastic. The Vorthak have a waiting list of over 50 million individuals who want to emigrate to orbital habitats. They are planning 12 more installations based on this design, and they have asked if we would be willing to share construction management techniques. The success of interspecies space habitation had created something that nobody had anticipated, a voluntary migration movement that was reshaping galactic demographics. Species that had been limited to planetary surface populations for their entire histories were discovering that orbital space offered opportunities for expansion that dwarfed anything possible on traditional worlds. The Aquatic Cooperative Project? Kethvar prompted. Even more successful than projected. Dr. Vasquez replied, her enthusiasm evident. Combining their water-based environment requirements with our rotating habitat designs created opportunities that neither of our species had recognized. It turns out that large rotating bodies of water create some fascinating fluid dynamics effects that can be used for both transportation and manufacturing processes. The holographic display shifted to show the elegant curves of the Aquatic Cooperative's orbital habitat. Rather than the geometric shapes that characterized human construction, the aquatic species had developed flowing organic forms that looked more like art than engineering. Water moved through the structure in carefully designed currents that provided transportation, carried nutrients and waste products, and operated manufacturing systems that produced goods with precision impossible in planetary environments. They have achieved manufacturing tolerances that exceed our best robotic systems, Dr. Watson Vasquez explained. It turns out that when you combine three-dimensional fluid flow with the precision biological manipulation capabilities of aquatic species, you can manufacture components with microscopic precision. They are producing mechanical parts for our installations that are actually superior to anything we were making ourselves. Kethvar nodded, making notes on his personal data pad. The collaborative projects had revealed something that the galactic community had never recognized. Different species brought different capabilities to space habitation, and combining those capabilities produced results that exceeded what any single species could achieve. The insectoid collective installation? That one is. Dr. Wall. Vasquez paused, searching for words. It is probably the most remarkable thing any of us have seen. They have created a space habitat that functions as a single massive organism. The structure itself is alive, growing, and adapting continuously based on the needs of its inhabitants. The display showed what looked more like a biological entity than a constructed habitat. The insectoid collective, with their hive mind coordination capabilities and biological construction techniques, had created a space habitat that could literally think and respond to its environment. Population capacity is potentially unlimited, Dr. Vasquez continued. The habitat grows new sections as needed, optimizes its internal configuration for maximum efficiency, and even reproduces itself when population pressure reaches certain thresholds. They now have a network of 17 interconnected installations that function as a single distributed organism spanning Earth orbital space. The implications were staggering. The insectoid collective had solved the problem of space habitat scalability by making their installations biological entities that could grow and reproduce as needed. Combined with human engineering principles for structural stability, they had created space habitation systems that could expand to virtually any size. Ambassador, Vasquez continued, I need to discuss something with you that goes beyond our normal engineering cooperation projects. Kethvar set down his datapad, recognizing the shift in her tone. Over 5 years of working together, he had learned to read human emotional indicators well enough to know when Dr. Vasquez was about to discuss something significant. We have received informal inquiries from 27 different species about establishing permanent orbital habitats in other star systems, she said. They want to use the techniques developed here, but they want to establish them around their home stars or in systems they are planning to colonize. The request was unprecedented. Humanity was being asked to help establish space habitation throughout the galaxy, spreading the techniques that had made Earth orbital space into a thriving multi-species civilization. The interesting part, Dr. Preveo, Vasquez continued, is that several species have asked if human technical advisors would be willing to relocate to other systems to help establish these installations. Some have offered to set up mixed-species colonies where humans would be full participants rather than just technical consultants. Kethvar considered the implications. Humanity had gone from being an unknown species on a classified death world to being the most sought-after technical partners in the galaxy. Their engineering techniques had made large-scale space habitation practical for dozens of species, and now the galaxy wanted them to help spread those techniques to every inhabited system. What is the human government's position on these requests? Dr. Vasquez smiled with what Kethvar had learned to recognize as characteristically human optimism. The official position is that we would be delighted to help. The unofficial position is that we think this is exactly what the galaxy needs. Space habitation should not be limited to one star system. If we can help other species establish orbital civilizations around their home stars, we will have achieved something remarkable. The galaxy will be transformed, Kethvar observed. The galaxy is already being transformed, Dr. Vasquez corrected. The question is whether we guide that transformation or just let it happen randomly. We prefer to be actively involved in making it work well. As their meeting concluded, Kethvar remained in his office, contemplating the view of Earth below and the impossible cities surrounding him. 5 years ago, the Galactic Council had been debating whether to make formal contact with a species that built impossible space habitats above a death world. Now, that same species was being invited to help reshape galactic civilization by spreading space habitation techniques throughout the galaxy. Dozens of species were discovering that orbital space offered opportunities for expansion and development that exceeded anything possible on planetary surfaces. Multi-species collaboration was producing technological advances that no single civilization could have achieved alone. The humans had taken their adaptation to a hostile homeworld and used it to make space habitation practical for species that had never dreamed of living among the stars. They had shared their impossible engineering techniques freely, collaborated enthusiastically with species that approached problems completely differently, and treated the transformation of galactic civilization as an interesting project to be undertaken with characteristic cheerful optimism. Looking out at the growing network of orbital installations representing dozens of different species, Kethvar realized that the Galaxy Council had been completely wrong about Earth 5 years ago. They had classified it as a death world that had produced a hardy but probably limited species. In reality, Earth had been a training ground that had produced a species capable of making the impossible seem routine, turning engineering challenges into collaborative opportunities, and viewing the entire galaxy as a neighborhood where everyone was welcome to build whatever kind of home they could imagine. The Death World classification had been correct in one sense. Earth was indeed hostile to most galactic species, but for humanity, it had never been a death world. It had been a teacher that had prepared them to build paradise cities in the vacuum of space and then invite the entire galaxy to come live in them. and the galaxy had accepted the invitation with enthusiasm that surprised even the eternally optimistic humans. Space was no longer a frontier to be explored or a resource to be exploited. Space had become home to millions of beings from dozens of species, all living together in impossible cities that should not exist, built by a species that refused to accept that anything was truly impossible. As Kethvar finished his daily reports, he included a personal note that would be read by Council Prime Vex Theran. The humans continue to exceed our expectations. I recommend that we stop trying to predict what they will achieve next and simply enjoy watching them redefine what is possible. Outside his office windows, the lights of a dozen different species twinkled in the impossible cities floating in Earth's sky, while far below, the death world that had taught humanity to build miracles continued its eternal dance through space, proud parent to the species that had turned the galaxy into their neighborhood.